Welcome to the Health Promotion Influencer Series for the 2011-2012 academic year. This series is a new initiative at Villanova that aspires to encourage a common language for learning and understanding critical student health issues. Our goal is to empower you to positively influence your students' Villanova experience and beyond. This evening's session focuses on how to start and continue the conversation about body image with your Villanova students. Our sessions are recorded and you will have access to a copy of this session in all influencer sessions online. My name is Catherine Poet and I am the Assistant Director of Health Promotion at Villanova. I will be the moderator for this evening's session. The Office of Health Promotion is the health education and outreach arm at Villanova. We educate and empower students to balance the various aspects of their life, to take an active approach to their health, and to integrate strategies that reduce their risk for a variety of college student health issues. And joining us this evening is Dr. Robert Hornstein from A Chance to Heal Foundation and Lauren Maxham. Dr. Hornstein?
Hi, how are you?
All right.
Well, I'm really glad everybody's here tonight.
Lauren, would you like to say a word about A Chance to Heal Foundation?
Sure. A Chance to Heal is a nonprofit that is dedicated to preventing eating disorders. Although it didn't start out that way, it's kind of grown to become that. It was founded by Rachel Silver and her mother Ivy back in 2005, following Rachel's treatment for an eating disorder. And basically what A Chance to Heal is looking to do is to provide workshops for parents and for kids of all different ages that redefine how media looks at what our body image should be and countering what culture says we should think about our bodies and how we should act towards our bodies. And so that's kind of what we're doing here tonight. And so basically it's grown a lot since 2005, but specifically they've begun to work with research and symposiums and, really being some of the first research out there for what eating disorder prevention looks like. Yeah, is there anything else I should say on that front?
No, I think that's good. Thank you, Lauren.
Oh, you're welcome.
Our agenda appears on your screen, and we will discuss the leverage that you have as parents and guardians on your students' attitudes and perceptions of body image. We will introduce you to campus services and resources as it relates to body image, and we hope to provide you with tools and strategies to inform your future conversations with your Villanova student. We encourage you to ask questions throughout our session using the question feature located on your GoToWebinar dashboard. We will do our best to ensure that they are answered in the context of the presentation. However, we cannot guarantee that we will get to every question submitted this evening. Dr. Hornstein, would you like to start?
I would, and I'd like to say a few words about the agenda as you're looking at it. First of all, it's really interesting to raise the awareness about factors influencing your child's self-esteem and body self-esteem, and I just want to also say your own self-esteem and body self-esteem are part of this. And I want people to be aware of how you feel about your own body and talking to your student about his or her body, because those are really important things, and to know that self-esteem and body esteem change throughout the life cycle, rise up and down and up and down, and I'll give examples of that later. We're also going to start this dialogue about combating the negative effects of the media and peer pressure and our body-obsessed culture, and it is unbelievable how much pressure we have all the time, just having the television on, the radio, seeing billboards. It is constantly an influx of stereotypes coming at us. And also, we want to build a safe community of like-minded people, which basically means people who have concern about college-age students. And I know I do, both as someone who has worked with them for years, also as the parent of a daughter who's about to go off to college and thinking about what kind of influences are going to be out there and what she'll hear about her own body and what students tell me they hear. So I hope this is helpful for everyone tonight, and I hope you ask me any questions that would help you with the things you're struggling with. Parent influence it doesn't stop, and I think one of the things when I work with families, I always say is just because they're old enough to answer back or drive away does not mean you don't have an influence over them. You have an incredible influence. Dads, you have a big one, but moms are the #1 influences in a daughter's life, particularly around her body, not only how it looks, but how it functions and what it can do about sexuality, about parenting, about attracting people, about feeling good within yourself. How you feel about yourself as a mother, as a woman, is going to come across to your daughter. Children imitate their parents, which means if you've spent your life dieting, don't beat yourself up, but know that there's a good chance that your kids will have been through that with you and will imagine that that's part of how life is supposed to be. And the more you worry about your weight, the more your kids will worry about theirs. Your behavior, everything you say, you're fat, I can't wear that, I can't go out, is something that they listen to constantly, and they take it in even when they're grown up, you know, even when they're off on their own lives. This is an interesting thought. When you don't know what to say nothing. I often tell parents, check in with yourself before you say anything when your kid asks you a question or comes down in a new outfit or has changed their hair color or had a new tattoo, whatever it is. Before you say anything, take a breath, count to 10, and imagine what it is you really want to share with them. They're probably asking you for support or connection, and a lot of times we roll our eyes or say, you know, that looks this way or that way, and what they walk away with is one more time they've disappointed their parents. You know, a lot of times we feel out of control the older our children get, and especially when they're off at college, you know, day in and day out, we're not with them monitoring what they're doing or being part of it, and sometimes we end up getting irritable, controlling, disapproving, and some of what ends up happening is we focus on things that are not necessarily like what you're eating or what you're wearing or your weight. And your kids are going to be asking you about that or saying things about it, so not getting trapped in that is really important. Finally, really important, your own childhood issues around food, weight, and appearance and living with your bodies and the vulnerabilities of our bodies with illness impacts our parenting. And if you have a child in college, chances are you might have an elderly parent. So you're dealing with both physical health and deterioration and what it means to be older, and also with someone coming into their own as an adult. I'd ask everyone listening to just take a moment and imagine the most powerful positive or powerful negative thing one or both of your parents said to you about your own body as you were growing up, and what impact you think that had on you. If you have questions from that, please feel free to send them in and I'll answer that.
Dr. Hornstein, we did receive one question a little bit ago.
Great.
The parent said, I'm on a diet. Is that harmful to my college-age daughter if she is worried about her own weight?
Well, I don't know you, so I don't know if this is your first or your 15th diet, and I also don't know if this is a diet that your doctor said, hey, you know what, you have bad knees, and if you lost 15, 20, 30 or more pounds, you may not need surgery, or you may do better with surgery on your knees if you lose the weight, or your cholesterol's high, or you're pre-diabetic. If you're losing it because you're trying to fit into an outfit, or you're feeling out of control, and you're not happy with your weight, then yeah, it may have a negative impact. If your daughter or son, you said daughter I think in this case, thinks that you are on a diet for health in order to live a long life, that may be not such a bad thing. So one of the things this slide shows, besides that young man, is that parenting is really confusing and that we're all influenced by the same messages. The drive to be thin and thinner, overly sexualized images, to conform rather than looking the same as real, whether you use creative expression with clothes, jewelry, accessories. The media wants us to be influenced because the media wants us to buy whatever they're selling. And it influences how we talk to our kids, and our kids end up suffering the consequences of what they see, and also whether we talk about it or not with them. And, you know, as you can see in this, men are targeted a lot now. They're selling, hard to believe, the true Spanx for men, and 20% of those who suffer from eating disorders are male. And that probably reflects pretty accurately what I have in my practice right now. So shame is connected to so much in our lives. I mean, shame is one of the earliest emotions anyone feels, because in general, you think about, when does a child first feel shame? Chances are it's when we yell at them because we cross the room and they're about to do something really, really dangerous and they're little and we can't get there fast enough. For instance, when, you know, a little kid is sitting there and they have a metal fork and they see a plug in the wall and they think, maybe I'll plug this in. If you're across the room, you're going to yell stop and scare them, and they'll feel shame. However, shame is such a negative and powerful emotion that it often, if it continues to happen, will lower self-esteem, and it makes you more susceptible to an eating disorder or symptoms. The language that we use has a lot of impact, but it may not be the impact that we mean to have, because we are criticizing, often, even if you think about it, if you're criticizing somebody that your child admires, you're criticizing their values and what they believe and what they think is great. We need to be able to create a safe environment where we don't have judgmental language. In my house, the only curse word that you can't use is fat. And because to me, calling someone fat is, or using the F word, as I say, is very judgmental, and most of us use it against ourselves. We want to be aware of our tone of voice and body language and accept different ways of being and looking, remembering that adolescence into young adulthood is a time of trial and error and trying on all sorts of different ways to look and be and think and different music. And, you know, I swore when my father thought that the Beatles were not so great that I would never be one of those parents who thought that my kids didn't have the good music to listen to like I did, and yet there are times I hear music and I think, ay, what? And I realize it's not that it's better or worse, it's that what we grew up with is so powerful to us that it's what really leaves a lasting impression. So to get back to this idea of supporting without shaming, ask questions, be interested instead of condemning the things that you don't understand or know. Parents need to resist the natural instinct to fix their children's distress. That is one of the hardest things for most of us. It's really hard for parents to just listen and be with their kids as they struggle, but to know that you trust your child's ability to work things out is really, really important. I just talked to somebody recently who said that they were a vice principal in a school and they got a phone call from the parent of a 10th grader saying, my daughter lost her jacket. Can you walk her through the school and help her find it? And of course this person said, you know, that doesn't sound like a really great idea, because I think we're going to raise a lot of suspicion why your kid is walking around with the vice principal. But we want to help so much, sometimes we intervene at the wrong moment. Sometimes you just want to let them be heard and validated for who they are or what they're feeling, whether they're feeling smart or not so smart, they're worried about what other people think of them. You know, telling your child that everybody's going to like them is actually, a disservice. Telling them, listening to them promotes resilience and builds self-confidence. I had a young student in recently who said, you know, I think I have this great group of friends, but I really think this one person in my class doesn't like me. And I said, well, what would be the tragedy if this person didn't like you? Like, why would you focus on that person instead of all the people who do like you? So really helping them and letting them have distress, unless you think it's such big distress that you need to do something about it. They sound suicidal, they sound depressed, they're not functioning. That's when you intervene.
Dr. Hornstein, we had another question come in.
Sure.
The parent asked, can I call the student health center or counseling center to have them see my child if something is wrong? And can they tell me if they are seeing him or her?
Well, that's a great question. If you think something's wrong and you're very far away, one of the things we all want to believe, and I think colleges do their best to be this, is that the college is a safe place that's an extension of family. So if there's something happening and you can't get here, there is nothing wrong with making contact with your child, telling your child that you're going to make contact with the counseling center and find out what's available and get resources. But you can't just call them and make an appointment. And you can't call them and say, I know you might be seeing my child. Are you? If you are, can I find out what's going on? Unless your child has signed away their rights, you know, and said, you can talk to my parents, which a lot of kids do. A lot of kids will say, talk to my parents. A lot of children do not, though. A lot of students will say, that's not what we want. The time to call the counseling service for someone, a woodsman or somebody who would represent your child, is if you talk to your child and you suspect that there's something really, really dangerous going on. At that point, that's different. But if you are sending your child to college with the potential with eating disorder symptoms or concerns, it would be best if you did, you know, actually make contact with the right people, the health people and the counseling service when you brought your student to school, so that they knew what was out there.
Thank you.
I hope that answered your question. Media literacy. I don't know about the people listening in, but I did not grow up on digital technology, so the images were not retouched as much as they are now. Our children have grown up with digital technology, and I think a lot of them are smart enough to know, but I don't believe they take in that what the images we're seeing are manipulated images. We need to teach them this. And this study is really interesting that they're quoting. One study found that after 3 minutes of looking at models and fashion magazines, 70% of women reported feelings of shame, depression, guilt about their body. Now, these are women that they were looking at, women who know that these pictures are shrunk and retouched and made into different images all the time, and that those bodies are not actually what that person's body looks like. But we have to teach ourselves that, and we have to make sure we're talking about it with our children. When you can, go shopping with your child, your student, watch TV together, and bring up these things just casually, like nobody's body looks like that. Or, you know, what is the goal of that picture? What are they actually selling us?
Dr. Hornstein, would you like to show the evolution video right now?
I was just thinking about that. That would be great, Catherine. Could you show that?
Yes, give me 1 second. Okay, for some reason the internet is having some technical difficulties. Hang in there 1 second.
All right, that's fine. For those of you who haven't seen that before, I would imagine that felt pretty powerful. It is exactly what is done to almost everything and anything we are watching these days. And if you want, you should show that to your student if they haven't seen it. They might have. It went around Facebook for a long time. But it's so powerful how we take a person who looks like every or any one of us, you know, just a regular person, and turn her into a completely different person, elongating the neck, lifting the eyes, changing the hair, changing the size of the lips. And this is what leads our kids to think they need to alter their bodies, either by doing something like dieting, but also by talking to you about, should I have some kind of plastic surgery? I know one mother who I had to call into the room during having worked with her daughter who had anorexia for a while, because she had promised her if her anorexia symptoms went away, she would get her a nose job and have her lips made fuller with collagen. And I called her in and I talked about how, what was it that she was trying to do here, and her daughter was quite angry with me. But in the long run, we had some really good family sessions, because the mother had been promoting, you need to look a certain way, you need to look a certain way for a long time, and this was one more way that she was trying to please her mother. And the surgery never happened, and she did recover from her anorexia, I'm happy to say. Okay, fat talk. Fat, as I said, fat is a really big curse word for me. It's so natural. We say it all the time. I have heard little children in daycare and little kids say, do you think I'm fat? I had years ago, when I think my daughter was in 2nd or 3rd grade, a number of her friends slept over, and I made a big bowl of popcorn, and one of them said, I don't think I can eat popcorn. It has butter, and that will make me fat. And I was so shocked, and I said, well, nothing in my house makes anybody fat if they eat it when they're hungry. And she ate some, and she was quite happy. I think we have to stop thinking of our bodies in comparison to these stereotypes that are out there, and think of the functionality of your body. If it does what it's supposed to do and it's healthy as can be, you're very lucky, and that's a wonderful thing. The 2011 study they're talking about in the Psychology of Women Quarterly, 93% of the women that they spoke to engaged in fat talk. 1/3 reported fat talking frequently. It's a way of women bonding with their friends. Research suggests that people who fat talk often have higher body dissatisfaction and may be at risk for disordered eating. You can make your house a fat talk free zone. That's become, as I said, a curse word. No one really knows what it means. It's just not a pleasant word. And the words we say to ourselves are they can be very, very harmful. So even if you've always used it, you can knock it out now, and that will still make an impact on your kids. Deciphering comments. So when your daughter or son say, do I look fat, what are they really asking? You know your child better than anybody. They're really saying, am I good enough? Am I likable? Will I fit in? Am I okay? And saying you don't look fat is probably the last thing they're really needing to hear. It's okay to understand, what are you really asking me? And I've said that to clients who come in and say, I feel bloated, I feel enormous, I feel gigantic. And it's okay to say, that's really confusing. You're probably confused, and I'm confused. Let's talk about what you're really talking about. And you have students who talk about, oh, I gained a freshman 15, and their moms or dads promised that they could lose weight over the summer. And instead of saying, how was school, and how are you, and are you having a good adjustment, and how are your friends, and tell me what it's like there. So you really want to understand when they ask you questions what they're really asking. So healthy eating and nutrition versus dieting. I would say if you have a chance to find some book somewhere, and there are plenty of them, on mindfulness and eating, it would be really wonderful. Mindfulness in general is great. It is being in the present, being aware of what your mind is doing and paying attention to it, but not as if it's truth. We think the things we think are truthful. So that person doesn't like me, I'm fat, I'm not going to do well on this test. We believe the hype, just like we believe the commercials that people look like that. So most people grow up thinking dieting is the logical thing to do for weight management. And I would bet everybody here believes that too. But 95% of people who diet gain weight back within 1 or 2 years, often with additional weight gain because the body reacts to restrictive methods. Kids who experience patterns of dieting and worry about their weight and engage in negative self-talk grow up to do the same thing and have disordered eating and lack of self-confidence. If you are doing this and you're concerned about your child, I can heartily encourage you to go and talk to someone, to read a book, to learn about how to eat when you're hungry and stop when you're full, which is the best and only diet technique anyone actually needs to begin a lifestyle of healthy relationship with food. And while if your doctor asks you to lose some weight, that's something different. But the truth of the matter is you need to learn what your cues are for hunger and for satisfaction. And if you can learn that, you're going to be way ahead of the game. So eat when you're hungry, stop when you're full, and talk to your children about doing that as well. So encourage nutrition without forbidding food. There are no bad foods. How we eat the food, how much we eat of it, whether we're hungry or not, those are really important things. When your kids are home, prepare meals with them. And don't think of good foods and bad foods. And yes, I will agree that eating every single day fried chicken is probably a bad idea. But that chicken is not in and of itself, even fried chicken, a bad thing. It's how much we eat. And if you eat it mindfully, which is with all of the senses, I'm going to describe as if you had a piece of fried chicken in your hand. Picking it up, looking at it with your eyes, looking at all of the bumps and the grease and all the things on it, smelling it, using your nose and figuring out what is that I'm smelling. It smells delicious. Your mouth watering, that is another thing that is happening. You can take some time and really take the tiniest bite and see what happens. Hear yourself chewing. Imagine the food going in, the nutrition that is happening. If you slow down and do that, by the time you have eaten maybe a quarter or a half of it, if you've eaten it that way, it'll take you 10, 15 minutes. You may not even be hungry for more. You may be starving if you really haven't eaten for a while. But you really may begin to feel the food in your belly, which most of us don't take time to do. And if you have an athlete or a dancer in your house, it's especially important to teach them how to eat as athletes, not getting them addicted to or thinking about all these muscle mass gain things and weight loss, but really thinking about how do you fuel your body for the kind of workout that you put it through.
Dr. Hornstein, we had a couple of questions come in.
Sure.
The first, what if my child has weird eating habits? For example, they suddenly become vegan, and I suspect an eating disorder. What should I do?
Okay, well, that's a great question. You know, weird is a judgment, but if you're feeling that there's an odd thing happening that's really not usual for your child, you know, you have to decipher if it's something that has to do with a philosophy or a belief system or whether it's about controlling weight. I know that when I was in college, I took a class on philosophy and death. And it was an amazing class. The teacher was incredible, and she had us read a book called like Animal, Food, and Morals, or something. Animals, Men, and Morals. And by the time I finished, I was absolutely a vegetarian, because the idea of what was happening to the animals and slaughtering the animals and the ground we were using, all of that really affected me. That did not mean I had an eating disorder. If your child starts to come home and say, I will only eat green things, I will only eat raw things, and you're noticing a huge weight loss, then that's something to really pay attention to and to talk to them about. What is this? What are you eating? How are you getting the right proteins? How are you figuring this out? I would just ask a lot of questions. The other thing is, and it's additional to what you're saying, but one thing you should also notice too is if other habits are happening too, such as only eating certain things, very little, and then you notice that a lot of food is gone during the night, because sometimes people who starve themselves during the day will binge at night, and you may notice that they have suddenly eaten, you know, 5 dinners that you left out for the next day. So just paying attention and talking to your child about it is really, really important.
The next question is, how do I bring up the topic of food and the freshman 15?
Yeah, I'd mentioned that before. You know, the freshman 15 may or may not actually be a real thing, but there certainly is a sense of I'm feeding myself, it's not my family food. There may be, you know, if they're on a meal plan, there's unlimited amounts of this and that and the other thing, or if you've given them, you know, they have a room and they can go shopping and they can cook in their suite, they may be choosing things that are easier to make or take less time, and they may come home indeed with some poundage. I would say nothing, you know, unless you think that they're completely unhealthy, and that would be a pretty big judgment call on your part. In general, unless they're saying, I went out of control and I don't like how I've eaten, and then it'd be fine to say, well, you know what? Why don't you practice mindful eating? Eat when you're hungry, stop when you're full, pay attention to your food, and I bet it'll feel better. With binge eaters, I often, you know, talk to them about reminding themselves that this is not the last of any particular food that they will ever see, because sometimes there's that sense of almost like, I will never have another donut like this again. So you just, you know, see what your child says about it. But the last thing that you ever want to do if your child comes home from school and they've gained some weight is say to them, wow, the freshman 15 really did come on you. You know, you really did gain that weight. So you have to be really careful.
Thank you, Dr. Hornstein.
Thank you.
We are now armed with all of this great information about body image. We know that our students view you as a reliable, credible, and accurate source of information. They are coming to you more frequently than any other source, including their peers, and they are listening to what you say. Understanding some of the challenges that you face with this issue, it is important that you utilize what you know to think about how you act and talk about body image with your Villanova students. I'd like to spend our last few minutes together this evening reviewing some of the key resources and services available to your students at Villanova. The first is the Love This Skin You're In Fashion Festival. This is an annual event that our office holds in February. This year it will be occurring on February 27th at 7 p.m. I would encourage you to ask your student to come and view this program. All of our models are real students, faculty, staff members from the Villanova campus, and it's an evening where we promote body respect and appreciation. It really shows the diversity of beauty on this campus and is a celebration of a healthy body image. Next is Freshet News and Sophet News, which are newsletters for parents of freshmen and sophomores to kind of keep up to date with what's going on our campus and what resources are available to you. Next is POWER. This is a peer education program run out of the Office of Health Promotion. They are trained in several health topics, and they go out and do programs in the res halls to athletics, to Greek life, to the ROTC students. If your student is interested in health topics, educating and designing programs, this would be a great opportunity for them to be involved. Our office also holds internships. These are academic credit-bearing internships, and they don't need to have a health background or a health major to interview, but we have opportunities from being able to author a journal for us all the way to helping us design our webpage. Thundercats is a student organization that provides excursions off campus and some social activities on campus without alcohol, and they always promote a healthy way of life. The campus activities team is out of our student life office, and they as well, very similar to Thundercats, host a full menu of programs on and off campus. And obviously our influencer series session. If you would like a quick go-to source of information, I would invite all of you to visit our web resource, which is the Office of Health Promotion webpage. You can find information on a slew of health topics, as well as continued resources beyond what our office can provide. If your student would like to visit our counseling center, it's right here on the Health Services building as soon as you enter campus. It is a very friendly atmosphere, and it's one where it can be confidential and also free of cost, which is important to let your student know. If your student needs emergency care, we do have our own emergency medical service PEMS, which your student has their contact information on the back of their student ID. If you would like print resources, join other programs, or have a one-on-one consultation for a variety of health topics, your student is more than welcome to come into the Office of Health Promotion. We would like to thank you for joining us this evening. We certainly hope that this has broadened your understanding of body image and your students. I would also like to thank Dr. Hornstein and Lauren for giving up their evening to join us and share their expertise with us. This concludes our Influencer Series session on body image. Within the next several weeks, this presentation recording will be available on the Influencer Series website, housed under the Office of Health Promotion website. Please also watch for announcements in the Crescent News and Soffit News newsletters with regard to presentation recordings. Our next Influencer Series session for the 2011-2012 academic year takes place on February 21st from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and focuses on creating and sustaining healthy relationships. We hope you will be able to join us again. Have a happy and healthy evening.